Hello and welcome to the Dire Gentleman channel. It's a me, Guso Milcarella, yada yada yada. You know the drill. I'm not alone, as usual.
It is I, the grabber. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, you know who it is and what it does.
Okay, so I've just seen the menu. You two saw the menu like the other night. I really need to talk about this film because I feel like this is a movie that every YouTuber should see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you are
Yes.
so right.
I sold this to Gus by saying, Gus, we got to talk about this on the channel because it and Note have the very specific theme in common of like consumption as a metaphor for like all of creativity and like content creation.
This might be one of my favorite movies ever.
I knew it would be.
Yeah.
I fucking knew it.
You get a feeling sometimes when you like leave a movie. I felt the same way with Colossal that had Jason Sudeikis and Hathaway. That's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I knew that from the moment I first saw it. This one, I feel like I might just go back and see it again while it's still in theaters. It's that good.
Did it make you feel weirdly emotional about a burger?
Yeah.
The energy of this is much like a stage play. You could easily do this movie in a stage play, but the presentation of film adds a lot more visual flair, especially to the presentation of the food.
Yeah, I was saying to Meg, I think your play comparison is very apt. What's really funny about this movie is there are essentially two primary locations in it. It's a kind of locked room thriller. It's very sort of Agatha
Because
Christie.
the restaurant is on this island, which is a self-contained ecosystem, and you know, there's one boat in, one boat out, and you're not allowed to leave until the meal is finished.
And everyone who works on the island, from the like actual cooks to like the kind of assistants and guards, are all like cultishly devoted to the chef,
Yes.
Julian Slowick, played by Ray Fiennes.
And it sets the stage for not just like, you know, the culinary arts as this like, well, this is the ideal place to have it happen. The, you know, self-contained ecosystem of life, all these organisms that are going to be turned into ingredients, and then the people who make them into ingredients are just there on site eternally. And the chef, like, kind of above all of this, it's what a lot of people mythologize, especially people who believe in auteur theory, mythologize any kind of writing room or like artistic den to be, where there is the supreme overlord, the god, the chef, the one who creates it all, and then there is the workers who are subservient to them, and then beneath that is the raw material that is forged into the art, that has no purpose, that is baser and like primitive and primal without the hand of the auteur guiding it.
So right.
Yeah, and speaking of people who hold that belief, at the start of the film we meet our two main question mark characters. There is Margot, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who
looks uncannily like Makima Chainsaw Man.
yeah, I think this
She
is,
has the same haircut and hair color.
I think this is her like stealthy secret audition for the inevitable like
Terrible American Chainsaw Man movie.
the Chainsaw Man Netflix movie that tries to do the entire plot in one film.
Please don't do that to me. She's Princess Peach, which means she's like royalty now.
Simp.
Well, okay. Shut the fuck up. Because Anya Taylor-Joy is like an ancient spirit made flesh. She is so like uncannily beautiful that I think she's the only living elf in the world. You want to call me a simp? Well, guilty as charged.
Addison agrees with you because she has said many times, she has this script that she wrote for school, and she was just like, the whole time I was writing this, I wanted Anya Taylor-Joy to play the fairy character.
Good. Addison has good taste. She knows this.
And again, another reason she'd be great casting as Makima. But
Shut up. Makima is Japanese.
As people who you definitely wouldn't simp for, I would be very surprised if anyone came away from this movie liking or even feeling slightly sympathetic to the other quote-unquote main character,
Tyler,
as
played by
Nicholas
Hoult of The Great and X-Men
Warm
First
Bodies.
Class and Warm Bodies.
Fucking Tyler.
if a food bro is a thing that exists, he's that. Because, like, Margot's waiting at the dock and she lights a cigarette and he goes, "You can't smoke before you go there. You'll ruin your palate. You'll kill your taste buds."
No, this guy is in, like, you know, the movie's about food, but it's about so much else. This is the obsessed privileged person who wants to just take whatever weird hobby he has deadly seriously because he can't live for anything else but the gratification of being served by geniuses.
And there's this part that kind of sums up the difference between these two characters is when they're on the boat, somebody comes around and gives them an oyster each as like a little nibble while they're waiting to go to the restaurant. They eat the oysters. Margot goes, "I would have enjoyed the oyster just as much without the pearls or the mignonette dressing because I love oysters." Tyler is just like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Why would you say that?"
He is exactly representing the kind of, like, psychopaths who you see on Letterboxd all the time, who have, like, 4,000 films logged.
Yeah, and they've reviewed all of them.
His, like, character arc, or rather the slow disemboweling of his inner shittiness, is really satisfying to watch, in one of the many through lines, because this is an ensemble cast a la something like 12 Angry Men,
Yes.
where there's just a bunch of different people experiencing the same situation, including John Leguizamo, Luigi himself.
John Leguizamo is so good in this movie.
He's doing such a great job! I fucking love John Leguizamo!
He's at his most Alex Aldea in this film.
Oh, for sure. He is Aldea coded in this movie.
We keep quoting the, like, oh, you know, get a moped, go down to Giuseppe's, get some pizza.
I'm wearing my Capri pants. I get on my moped. I drive the moped down to Giuseppe's cheese shop. I take a bite of the cheese. I fake an orgasm.
I go to South Africa, say, yeah, racism, maybe not so cool.
Yeah.
What I love about this character that he's portraying in this is that, like, he's so aware of how superficial his existence is, because he's a movie star.
And he's there for the funniest reason of any of them.
And he's there with his assistant because he's trying to, like, greenlight a new travel food program.
And his assistant is a character in her own right, because she is fully planning to just leave his employment after this dinner date.
Yeah.
And she's been stealing money from him.
Yeah.
It's an interesting plot point, and it becomes vital later on that Chef Slowick doesn't accept lone diners. You need to, at the very least, be a pair. That's why, like, some of the pairs there are, like, John Leguizamo and his assistant.
There's, like, an older married couple.
Yeah, who are, like, very wealthy. There is,
Tyler and Margot.
Yeah, there's this shitty film critic woman and her
food critic.
Oh, sorry, food critic woman. And her, like, spineless, like, magazine representative.
Who just, like, she'll say something and he'll be like, "Oh, so true.
Yeah,
so true.
he'll
I
just
was gonna say that
agree.
as well." Yeah.
There are these three, like, shitty finance bros who are...
employees of, like, a venture capitalist who financed the restaurant.
Yeah, which is also important.
And the food critic is, like, she's, like, this great tastemaker, pun intended. Her reviews will make or break a restaurant, and she was the one that got the word out about Hawthorne and kind of put it on the map.
Because she's the kind of critic who believes that, like, critique and commentary on the art, on the service, is what gives it meaning, rather than its intrinsic value.
Which plays very well into what you were saying earlier, Gus, of everyone who wants to be someone who, like, makes a living or even has a hobby sharing their opinions publicly about art needs to watch this movie.
Yes. Like I said, with this and Nope have it in common. Like, it is a movie about the attitudes that consumers have towards art. If Jean Jacket is the uncritical consumer who just kind of hoovers up everything that's remotely interesting within a 20-mile radius without thinking about it for even a second or considering the work that went into it, the people in this movie are the entitled consumers. They're the ones that think that everything has to cater to them specifically.
No, all of them are some brand of, like, commentator. Tyler is the one who fawns over geniuses, and the food critic is someone who believes that they make geniuses occur. They're the catalyst for that to happen. John Leguizamo's character, he's sick of all of it. He knows that none of it means anything. And the finance bros, they're insiders. They're like, well, since we're already here, we might as well enjoy this, but they don't really care whether or not the food is good, and they're kind of disappointed by everything because they think they're too good for it all. There's also the older couple who are, like, the regulars, who they're just, like, in it because it's a habit.
Yeah,
it means nothing to them.
The one exception to everybody who's, like, an elite here is Margot, Anya Taylor-Joy's character, because Tyler was meant to bring his significant other, Miss Westerfield, as she's known. She's an off-screen character, but at the last moment, she had broken up with him, so he hired an escort, which is Margot, which is why she's here.
And this immediately creates this very interesting, what at first seems like a directly adversarial relationship between her and Slowick.
But he also has a kind of respect for her because as an escort, he works in food service and she works in, sex service.
Well, that's the thing, is what's so interesting about Slowick is that initially you get the sense that he's just as snobby and elitist as the rest of them, and that's what he means when he says, you don't belong here. But you get the sense, like, as Tom goes on, that what he really means when he says you don't belong here is you're better than these people.
Yeah, because he describes all of the people who are there to eat, he describes them as, like, takers.
Yeah, are you a giver or a taker?
Are you a giver or a taker? Are you somebody who creates or somebody who consumes?
There's a thing Tyler says earlier in the movie where he's like, oh, well, a chef works with the raw materials of life itself. How is that much different from film? The raw materials of life are also, like, emotions, are also pathos. And in sex work, part of that is, like, allure, attraction, sexual desire.
And, like, the physical body.
Yeah, the physical body, like, the act that creates life. Sex.
So in Tyler's, like, weird myopic view of it, in deifying some geniuses over others, he kind of, like, in a way that he would never be able to perceive, lets slip that all things that are given to this world, all contributions that are made for the benefit of something or someone bigger than oneself, to do with the building blocks of life itself, because life itself is made of sacrifice, made of giving, and there's no other purpose to it other than to produce shit from the consumption.
Yeah, which is a great line in it, where at some point Slowick says to, I think, the older couple, you take my work and you turn it into shit, which is both genius, like, literally and metaphorically. Meg described this movie as being like a mix of Ratatouille and Midsommar.
No, I can't take credit for that. That was a Letterboxd review.
Oh, well, some person on Letterboxd described this as a mix of Ratatouille and Midsommar.
They said this movie is like if Midsommar and Ratatouille had a baby.
And
I feel you had a more accurate description, which is this is if Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Midsommar had a baby.
Yeah, no, that's also very fair. But the thing is, I do think ultimately it kind of does Ratatouille's themes better than Ratatouille in the end, because it doesn't have Brad Bird's weird hang-ups.
Yeah, Brad Bird didn't have a chance to Brad Bird all over this.
The weird thing about Ratatouille is that, like, it almost feels like Ratatouille is a hour and a half of Pixar tomfoolery leading up to a really thought-provoking short film in the last few minutes.
Yeah, it's like the anti-Up.
Yeah, and, yeah, it's true. But even then, it's something that you could argue, and I think Big Joel made a really good video about this, you could argue that there are elements of that feel like they're kind of forcing things to fit a certain theme.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie feels laser-focused in what it wants to say.
That touches on something really interesting about this film, because throughout it, you end up, like, rooting for the chefs as they continue to fuck with these people. Sure, there's some stuff they do that's over the line, but on some level, with, like, all these kind of, like, vultures, like, picking apart things and, like, like, scrutinizing every detail of what they're being given, even though it is the best of the best. The response from the kitchen just being like, no, fuck you.
Yeah. I bet this is incredibly satisfying to watch to anybody who's worked in a restaurant.
No, 100%. Anyone who's, like, worked in any kind of service industry. And you know what? They like, do a good job of contextualizing that, because the chef is not somebody who, like, was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He keeps a picture of himself from when he was a fry cook.
Which leads us nicely into, when shit starts to get a little bit real, the tacos.
So, if food is a metaphor for art, we're starting to get into the part where people try to justify geniuses through the tragedies that befall them. And the chef gives this monologue about how his father tried to choke his mother with, like, telephone wire. In response, the chef stabs him in the leg with a pair of scissors. And as we see this, we also cut back to the kitchen, and they are taking chicken thighs and stabbing them with scissors, meaning that the meal that is about to be received by all the people who are here is a recreation of a horrific childhood trauma experienced by the chef, and everyone's just like, brilliant, bravo. Oh, you've turned your pain into sustenance for us.
The name of the dish is Memory, and he prefaces the story with saying that, like, this happened on a Tuesday night, and in his house, Tuesday night was Taco Tuesday. It's like chicken al pastor with tortillas and like guacamole and sour cream on the side. He's like, I'm hoping that this food will awaken a memory for all of you. And that when they open up the case with the tortillas in it, every tortilla has like laser cut burnt into it a picture of some horrible thing that's related to them. Like for the food critic, it's the front doors of restaurants that her reviews have gotten closed down. For the older couple, it's pictures of the husband with an escort who might look a little familiar. And for Tyler, it's pictures of him taking pictures of the food. And for the finance bros, it's their like dodgy tax
embezzlement.
Yeah, it's evidence of their embezzlement. And for John Leguizamo, it is the poster for a movie that he was in that was terrible called Paging Dr. Sunshine. One of my favorite jokes in the movie is one of the side characters in this is like the sort of front of house of the restaurant, Elsa, who is played by
Hong Chow,
who
from
is
Watchmen.
Who was Lady True in the Watchmen TV series. One of the funniest moments in the movie for me is one of the finance bros holds up the tortilla, asks Elsa, hey, what the hell is the meaning of this? Like, what the fuck is this? And she goes, that is a tortilla, sir.
Delicioso.
Delicioso. And he goes, no, I mean, what is this? And then she says a bit louder, that is a tortilla, sir. Tortilla delicioso.
So then next they bring out sous chef Jeremy.
Sous chef Jeremy comes out to introduce his dish, which is called The Mess. The chef gives this speech of just like, you know, you've given up your entire life for this career. You want everything that I have. Like, is that very smart, Jeremy? And Jeremy's like crying. Jeremy's like, no, chef, it's not. And
like, do you want my life,
no,
Jeremy?
chef, I don't.
Yeah.
And there's like a tarp on the ground, so you kind of figure out what's gonna happen.
There's no elegant way to say it. He pulls out a gun and shoots himself in the head.
Yeah.
Then is dragged away.
What? And without missing a beat, that's when the course, The Mess, his life's work, his last act, comes out and is served to everybody who is panicking and trying to get away.
But then, shortly after that, when the finance bros start to freak out, like, you know, our boss is your boss, you can't do shit, and he's like, oh yeah, sweet, yeah, Darren, whatever the fuck his name was, my angel investor. It's like, will everyone please look out that window?
And he turns on a spotlight, and you see the angel investor is like bound and gagged, hanging from a crane with angel wings on, and he's being slowly lowered into the ocean.
Yeah.
This is like another moment of like the artist unfettered, because he's literally drowning the like image of like the financier, the person who's going to like, you know, like at the end of the day, you need a money man to make your art happen. Well, the money man is gone. Whatever goes on from this point onward is entirely the work of the artist.
He literally goes like, well, everyone please listen, as the guy's like put under, then like the bubbles stop, and he's like, do you hear that? I'm free.
These sequences are back to back, and this is sort of where we get into the thriller part of this, because before this, it was a very dramatic piece about like, you know, the finer things in life, but now this is about death.
And it's while we get this horrifying, like, wham moment where Margot is invited back into the kitchen again, and he's like, I'm going to give you
15 minutes
to decide whether you're with them or with us.
Because everybody in this building is going to die tonight, and you've got to decide whether you're going to die with them or die with us.
And it's like, fuck, okay,
yeah,
this is serious.
At this point in the movie, I had fully processed that it was going to be the destruction of all of these characters, and that their status, their privilege, everything that brought them to the restaurant would also be whittled away before the ending of the movie.
Yeah, and I'd say you were correct in that, because at this point, it starts to get a little bit kind of, again, into that like Midsommar Saw type space, where the meals also kind of become, like, challenges that
Yeah.
are meant to point out certain things. And the next one is interesting because not only does it split the group up a little bit and reveal a bit more information, it also makes it clear that in all of this, Slowick isn't putting himself above all of these people.
No.
Hence the sort of suicide element of the murder-suicide.
Because the sous chef that is like second in line after Jeremy is a woman who tells the story of the dish, which she calls Man's Folly, which is inspired by the chef Julian Slowick forcing himself onto her. So she like looks at him, and he apologizes to her, and then she stabs him in the leg, and then smears the blood on his shirt, sort of like the lamb's blood over the doorway in the Passover times. And so he's got that blood smear across his shirt for the rest of the movie. And she says, so this dish, inspired by that event, is called Man's Folly. All of the men... You will have 45 seconds of head start, try to escape the island. So all of the men start running, and then the women are brought back into the building to enjoy the dish that is Man's Folly, which it's crab with some kind of foam on it, and I love crab foam. This is my fancy bitch trait. I love a crab foam.
The whole Men's Folly sequence really does do a good job, again, of highlighting this undercurrent of, like, the tortured artist and the, like, self-justifying mechanism that society gives them, that Slowick opening himself up to this, like, you know, grand suicide pact is kind of doing away with, because he is a sex attacker. He's a monster. And he points that out throughout the whole film. But, like, from an outside perspective, there would be people like Tyler who would be like, oh, well, look at the trauma of his childhood. Of course he would externalize that into sexual violence. And that also probably informed his art. He just has a lot of feelings and a lot of passion that he needs to get out.
I mean, you think about all of the people who will defend Roman Polanski.
Or Kubrick.
Yeah, because, like, oh, well, Roman Polanski, his wife got killed by the Manson family, so obviously he's fucked up.
Slowick is a character who is, like, entirely morally reprehensible, but the fact that this movie is, like, a prolonged self-immolation, it almost feels like a ritual to kill this idea of the artist, to have it die along with him, this imperfect man who has all of society's views of what an artist's genius should be foisted upon him.
I gotta say, this movie is an absolute master of managing tone, because after all of this, like, quite, like, dark, heavy stuff, it then goes into what is both one of the funniest and hardest I have cringed at a scene in movie history.
For reference, each of the dishes gets like a little title card where you have kind of like a attractive shot of the food, and then it'll have just like the name of the dish and then just like what's in it. You have to know this for this joke.
Yeah.
This is like the undoing of Tyler. Because there's the professional food critic, there are the insiders, there's the, like, you know, person who's already made it. Tyler is the person who's idealizing this world. He represents the 2-bit commentator. When he is finally, like, confronted by the chef, told, like, oh, you know everything, you recognize this, like, you know, ingredient, you recognize this, like, you know, thing that made the snow texture, come on into the kitchen, Tyler, we're gonna put a coat on you.
And then he writes his name on it with a fabric pen.
Exactly. Sharpies his name on it and then takes him into the kitchen. It's like, cook, go, make the next meal, do it. He's forced to create. He's forced to make something of his own, to put himself on the line. And every single second, he's fumbling. He's trying to cut the onions, and he's doing it, like, in these crazy, like, fourths and eighths.
Yeah, he leaves the skin on the
And
shallots.
Slowick is like, is there some new technique that we're witnessing?
And, like, the title card that comes up is Tyler's bullshit. Undercooked lamb shanks with, like, burnt leeks and shallot and burnt butter. What Tyler's bullshit is like Doug Walker making Too Boldly Flame.
Yeah.
Yes, I think this more crucially, because there's a variety of people online who comment on media in many ways, but in some ways, like, every YouTuber has to reckon with, like, our place in the media ecosystem is to be Tyler.
Yeah, it's so true. And fucking hilariously, afterwards, Slowick tries a bit of it. It's like, Tyler, this is actually quite bad.
Yeah.
And then Tyler goes and kills himself.
Yeah, Tyler hangs himself in the storage room.
Exactly.
Because, like, how do you walk away from that? That is the greatest embarrassment a man could know.
No, and it's literally one of those things where chef's just like, all right, you know what to do, get out of here. And Tyler just does it. He uses escape rope from Pokemon and takes himself out of the equation.
And then fucking Slowick literally turns to the rest of them and is like, my apologies, that was not a planned part of the menu, but I felt like I had to do that.
It's so funny.
I think Slowick has got to be one of my favorite new movie villains.
He's so petty.
He has such an excellent hero-villain dynamic with Margot.
This actually leads us on to what I think is one of my favorite final confrontations between protagonist and antagonist in a film.
This is the sort of Ratatouille part of the movie. Margot confronts the chef about his food, about his art, about how he has stopped giving anything to it, because overwhelmingly what it has all come down to is contempt. And he's planning to take himself out of the equation and, quite frankly, deserves to be gone. The world would be a better place without him and his food and his art in its totality. But she brings that little bit of humanity out of him. She makes him and the rest of the chefs make a cheeseburger for her. And it's a cheeseburger that he, definitely wants to put, effort and love into. Because the way he phrases it is he says, this is going to be the cheeseburger that your parents could barely afford. Your first one when you were a child. I am going to make that for you here. And it's so clear that, in that moment, she is the best customer that he's had in a long time. And he is going to deliver his service to that customer because the good customer deserves the good food.
She gets a cheeseburger and she gets some crinkle cut chippies
On a paper plate.
And the way this is another Meg dropping a little bit of home chef lore. I've made many a cheeseburger in my day. It's one of my go-tos, and the fact that he puts a slice of onion on the back of the meat while he's grilling it vindicated me massively because I do that.
The genius of subtextual writing in this is her way of finally getting out is her taking a bite of it and being like, that's a damn good burger, which again, the amazing title card thing of just the burger. Just a well-made burger.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, this is amazing, but I think my eyes were a little bigger than my stomach. Can I take it to go?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he lets her go. And she also gets a little gift bag with the menu in it.
Well, everyone gets gift bags. It's just she's the only one who's going to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
She leaves
Everybody
with it.
gets the gift bag. And for a second, it's maybe he will let everyone go. But then he says, it's time for dessert.
At which point, Slowick starts to go on a rant about how fucking horrible s'mores are.
While putting marshmallow vests over everybody?
Yeah, and putting little chocolate hats on them, and then, sprinkling, cognac or brandy or something onto the ground along with the, biscuit crumbs. And I could not help but think of Paul Hollywood's absolutely dogshit s'more.
Yeah.
That he did
on the Great
British Bake Off that made the internet en masse turn against him.
This feels like this indictment of s'mores as a food. It does bring this all full circle. The s'more is just the ultimate, you don't need to have this.
It's like he said, it's something that is super processed and fake, and yet people associate it with childhood innocence.
And he's like, and the purifying power of fire brings it all together.
Yeah, at which point he drops a match and all of the brandy goes up and everyone dies. Yeah.
Again, it is the artist's self-immolation, and I think that, a weaker movie would have drawn more attention to fire outside of that one monologue, but throughout the film, we do get the several sort of shots of the kitchen, lighting up flames. We get his moment of saying that he has chef's hands, asbestos hands, and putting out a candle with his bare fingers. I think the fire symbolism in this is so key because all the ingredients of life are transformed by fire into food. fire being this mechanism that kills all of them while also making all this delicious food that is, brought up by the chef of like, we have to embrace this transformative power. In the end, like, that burning away of everything did feel ritualistic. It felt spiritual. It felt powerful.
I think it's one of those films that it's too early to tell in a lot of ways, but I think this is a modern classic.
The only reason I would hesitate to call this film genius is that I don't want to be Tyler about it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's the brilliance of it. The fact that it makes you think about how you think about it. Please go see The Menu. You've honestly done yourself a disservice if you've chosen to watch this whole video before seeing it.
This is the secondhand doggy bag version of the film.
Yeah, it's true. Like, genuinely, this should only have been taken as a companion to the film, but at the end of the day, we can't control your life. We fucking warned you at the start.
We can't control how you consume.
Yeah.
If this is your amuse bouche, then you're a real amuse douche.
Yeah!
Support art directly, consume art directly, don't let us tell you how to feel, and don't feel a certain way because you think about how it will make you look. Be sincere, be vulnerable. It's better to
Try making art for yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, before you're put on the spot and make Tyler's bullshit.
Yeah, don't make Tyler's bullshit.
Yeah.
What a fucking film. Thanks for watching, everybody.
At the end of the day, Borger.